I'm Jim Wood and welcome to my review for Paranormal Activity 4. This is the last of the current movies available on DVD and Blu-ray. I am now officially up to date. Paranormal Activity, the marked one, is out on the 1st of January 2014, and by the time I upload this video it will be 2014. So let's say Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you enjoyed your little night out. Hope you didn't get too drunk now. Awesome stuff. So let's talk about Paranormal Activity 4. So Paranormal Activity 4 was released in 2012. It is the sequel to the second one after the events of the second movie. This is meant to be one of the weakest out of the entire franchise. Naturally, the fact that it doesn't really add much in terms of, mythology and story in a sense. It's just a lot of stuff happening and there's not much really going on in this movie. It does add something to the actual franchise, but that's not going to last 10 minutes of the actual movie, which is extremely disappointing for Paranormal Activity fans that are stuck with the franchise. For someone like me, I would have been insulted if I would watch this movie at the cinema, paid £9–10 to go and pay and watch this movie. It feels extremely weak and it definitely feels like they haven't cared or tried at all in a sense. So I can understand why people were so furious when this movie first came out and it had some extremely bad reviews. So it makes sense that the actual Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, and Paranormal Activity 5 coming out in the early one in 2014, for obviously the Oktoberfest area, it needs to have its A game ready. It needs to improve in a sense. It did actually make its money back in the box office sales, being the fact that these movies practically cost nothing in a sense. They're very cheap made. It made its money back in the first couple of weeks, even due to poor reviews and poor comeback they usually do, but they realised their mistakes. They're going forward with a new franchise, and hopefully the spin-off movie will take this franchise in a brand new direction, which I'm hoping. So the storyline for Paranormal Activity 4 is set 5 years after the events of the second movie, with Katie and Hunter, still disappeared. The whereabouts is unknown, vanished. 5 years later on, we cut to our main kind of protagonist character, a very teenage girl, and her boyfriend. They're basically just doing random videos around the house. There's some brand new neighbours around across the road, and something's a bit off with their kids. Something's a bit weird about that house in a sense, and the people that live there. So something actually happens to the actual mother across the road, and the kid named Rob comes to live with them, and of course, like any Paranormal Activity movie, weird stuff starts to happen around the house. So yeah, the Paranormal Activity 4 this time around, I felt was still better than the first movie. The first one for me is the weakest, and I just don't enjoy it at all. At least this one had likeable characters. One thing I'm going to say about Paranormal Activity 4, I do agree with some of the reviews and do agree with some other people. It is quite weak in the sense of the scares. I'm going to say the actual jump scares and the actual physical scares are some of the most weakest I've ever seen within a horror movie. I mean, it is like insultingly weak. Cat jump scares, nope. Chandelier moving, nope. A flash of ghosts in the background, nope. Yeah, it's just shit in a sense, really powerful. I mean, at least with the second movie they had actually upped their game a little bit with actually doing a bit more practical with the toys and objects and cupboards, stuff like that. The third one took it even further than that in a sense. Actually did some pretty effective jump scares in a sense, and creepy atmosphere. Definitely had a good budget in terms of its imagination. Even the first one relied on sound, and it was very creepy in the sense of what's behind the door and what's going on downstairs kind of thing. At least that had something to make you go ooh kind of thing. This one had nothing. I jumped at no time. I was not scared. I was not freaked out. Nothing. This movie was really not scary in the slightest. And that's really much of a shame, and it's not really that much of a shock because they didn't give a shit, and you can clearly tell that they were basically just doing random stuff. Apparently in the actual DVD there's like half an hour of extra footage they did not show, so for people who do fan-made versions of the movie, you can do. My friend's done a 2-hour version, adding in some of the extra scenes, extra character development places, which is not too bad. In terms of characters, the main teenage girl and the boyfriend carry this entire movie. I'm gonna say that right now. If it wasn't for them two being such likeable characters and actually, being smart in some situations, the movie would be terrible, absolutely atrocious. But it was the fact that it was the girl that's quite nice and likeable and actually doing something smart and actually being creeped out by the kid Rob, that's come to live with them for a few days. A bit weird. I like the fact they had, cameras, messing around, doing these little home movies and everything, and they had the web cameras, the kind of Skype in a sense. I thought that was quite interesting. And of course they set up cameras around the house to get the typical, nighttime, day one kind of thing, night shots. A bit typical. The whole Xbox Live kind of network sensor thing, that was pretty cool, and some of the effects of that, and the whole shadowy things following the kid. I thought that was quite interesting, a bit like ooh kind of thing in a sense. But it's just like what, an hour and a half, hour and 20 of just stuff happening. It's a lot of character development, which is fine. It doesn't really add much to the franchise apart from the last 10 minutes, which I thought was pretty badass, and then just an abrupt ending, which makes you think, oh, seriously. You end it like that in a sense, it's a bit of like a thanks for, 10 quid, in a sense. Nah, it's just not very good. The ending was actually quite clever. It did actually add something to it, and it's a bit of mystery going on. But at the same time, I felt there was a lot of information missing in a sense. It's been 5 years. There's some questions still to be answered, and hopefully they will address them within the next movies. Activity 5 definitely should. I don't know whether it's going to be a sequel or prequel again. I don't know whether they're going to take this direction, but there's definitely a lot of answers still to be said, and it didn't really add a lot of much to the actual or what we already know in a sense, apart from a couple of the symbol, and the fact that Katie's in the movie again and Hunter and that type of thing. But it's a lot of mystery to be had, and it's just for an hour and a half movie, it doesn't really answer much. It just kind of it's more like a catch-up movie of what's happened since the events of the first two movies, So overall, Activity 4 is a lackluster movie. It's very anticlimactic in some of the scenes. It's jump scares and actual scares in general are an absolute joke. It's awful. Characters are likeable. That's what carries the movie. There's some good comedy elements. There's some good practical effects with the whole Xbox sensor. I thought that was quite cool. And it's a nice little catch up of what's happened between the second one and this one now. And it just adds something to be add on to the next movie, Activity 5 and the marked ones. But as a movie by itself, it can get really boring and really frustrating, especially if you're a hardcore fan of Paranormal Activity. So yeah, it can be a hit and miss for some people. So that's been my review for Paranormal Activity 4. If you enjoyed watching this review. So in the meantime, Andrew from Everyone TV.